Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from Capital One Bank and Chase Commercial Term Lending, the Witkoff Group, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Greenberg Traurig, Perfect Building Maintenance, Genova Burns. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Colliers International NYC, CPEX Real Estate Services, Cushman and Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Fisher Brothers, First Nationwide Title Agency, Flushing Bank, Foley and Lardner, Friedman, Handler Real Estate Organization, HAP Investment Developers, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Chairman USRealty.com, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, N.A., Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, Newbanks, MHP Real Estate Services, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Sterling National Bank, Sterling Risk, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Continuum Company, the CUNY TV Foundation, the Moynihan Group, and these friends.
Lower Manhattan, a place that people said nobody's coming back here. No one wants to be here. Who wants to schlep here? Why are they coming down here? There's nothing here. There's no restaurants. There's no retail. There's no amenities. There are no apartments. What office guys are going to move down here? That was then, and now is now. Lower Manhattan has changed. And to celebrate my 750th show, I am here in Lower Manhattan on the first time ever a Stoller Report remote from the building at 180 Maiden Lane, recently purchased by MHP Real Estate Partners and Clarion Partners, to discuss the dynamic office market in Lower Manhattan. My guests today include Janno Lieber, who is the president of World Trade Center Properties, Silverstein Properties, Bill Elder, who's the executive vice president, managing director of RXR Realty LLC, Rob Lowe, who is the vice chairman at Cushman and Wakefield, and last but not least, David Sturner, who is the chief operating officer and a principal at MHP Real Estate Services. As I was saying prior to the show, I remember Norman Sturner, right after the attacks at 9/11, saying, "I'm never coming back to Lower Manhattan. I'm not going to be here. This is not a market. I don't want to be here." What happened 14 years later?
14 years. I mean, things have changed. It's beyond the commercial market. What's happened is a small town has been built, a residential, not mecca, but certainly getting there. I would say something in the range of 29 to 30,000 units of condos and residential rentals built over the last 10 to 12 years has brought back restaurants, has brought, well, I shouldn't say brought back.
They were never restaurants.
Brought restaurants, brought infrastructure, and that has made it more attractive, including all that's gone on in Brooklyn and all that's gone on in Jersey City and Hoboken and the outlying areas. They all come and flooding to the downtown area, and I think it's reborn.
So you bought this.
Or newborn.
You and Clarion bought this. You guys, you never knew what downtown was. I mean, at one time you may have remembered it when it was the Rexon time, but downtown wasn't a market. You bought 32 Old Slip, you bought 61 Broadway. I mean, what brought RXR down here?
So there's been a renaissance downtown, and you know, we've watched it happen over the last several years. And you know, Rob and I were saying earlier, when we first started out, it was pretty quiet after 5 o'clock in most of downtown, and you know, everybody was financially oriented as far as their employment, and there was really no residents. And it started to change, but it didn't really catch on until, I guess, about a decade ago when this became kind of a very interesting place to be, transformative. And so, when you look at the big picture of New York City, the most employment ever in the history of New York, the most residents ever in the history of New York. And why? Because global capital wants to be here and make its home here. World residents want to make their home here. Businesses want to make their homes here because they attract talent. The city's vibrant and a very approachable place to live. And so that being the new normal, I suppose, I think all of Manhattan's doing great. And downtown is definitely benefiting just with great buildings, some big vacancies that have been filled with the amazing statistics over the last few years, and a real neighborhood. So when you look out the window here, there's a lot of character in downtown.
Now,
a lot of character.
How many years are you downtown? You were here just before.
Well, yeah, I've been at with Silverstein since early 2003, very close after the 9/11 attacks. And it really, as my colleagues are saying, everything has changed. This is the live-work community, the model live-work community of the United States. There's no question. It's the one place where people can live in whether they want a brand new high-rise or a really cool, redone old building. They can live in a first-class luxury building and then walk to work. There's the best mass transit because there are 11 subway lines. There's no other place in New York City where you have 11.
We have the new Fulton Street Station.
Yeah.
You have the path over here. You have all that.
All the ferries.
The ferries, and then, the transformation at Brookfield Place that you can go directly underground. You used to have to go above the bridge. It's a totally different world.
Totally different, but it has that cool live-work ethos that's what people are so attracted to New York. It's not, Midtown is great and it's still our premier business district, but there's nothing like the excitement of residential neighborhoods bringing to commercial areas, and that's what you've got downtown, in addition to the mass transit and the proximity to the young workforce, which is really what it's all about in New York.
But when you came downtown in 2003, the world was different. How long have you been working mostly? You started downtown.
I started my first 15 years.
With downtown. But when you were here in 2003, the city had to give incentives to people to move down here to live for residential reasons and also for office space. Today, what's the differential for being in downtown as compared to Midtown?
Well, there's still there's still great value to coming downtown. There's no question that if you include the incentives, and there still are some incentives because we've only rebuilt about 2/3 of the office space that was destroyed on 9/11. So we're still in the process of bringing the office space back, and there are incentives. The result is, between that and the differential in pricing, it's still more than 30% cheaper to be downtown. And that makes a big difference to a lot of companies.
What are the incentives? What type of incentives?
Well, there's no commercial occupancy tax in Lower Manhattan. There are some incentives associated with construction, where there's no sales tax associated with it, and you get even greater on soft costs when you're in the World Trade Center area. There's also the commercial revitalization plan where you're saving money on, if it's a pre-1975 building and it's a direct deal, you're saving up to $2.50 a square foot in commercial real estate, in real estate taxes. So it's cumulatively about $10 a square foot over the life of your lease, which adds up. Now that is subject to getting.
How important has been the Condé Nast lease at the Trade Center and the advertising leases that you've signed? How important has the TAMI, as what we would say, technology, advertising, media, and internet, had for Lower Manhattan?
When I started, it was primarily financial services. You had the insurance district where we are now. This is the old Continental Insurance building. And what that really showed was that other types of tenants can come downtown. And I think really it's leveraging the live-work environment where people are coming here. There are now places where you can go eat after hours. The Daily News came down here.
The Daily News came down here as a low-cost alternative.
Correct.
Okay, I remember
but
when
no
one of the
tenants
buildings
came.
was acquired by Harbor Group a number of years ago. Where could you buy a building maybe 6-7 years ago, $100 a foot?
Couple $100 a foot.
It sold for $125 a foot. Today, in certain buildings in Midtown, which are maybe a B plus, are selling for $1,100, $1,200. What MHP and Clarion at $400, $450 a foot, what you did at 32 Old Slip and at 61 Broadway, those are reasonable price
they're great values. And just to go back to the Condé Nast for a moment, that wasn't necessarily the cheapest deal, but it was a game changer for all of downtown because it immediately validated the value proposition for all the things we just talked about. So it made it perfectly acceptable for all these other creative types to be down here.
I mean, Time Inc. just came and leased a considerable amount of space at Brookfield Place. Brookfield Place was known as the World Financial Center. It's now Brookfield Place because they have diverse
when we
tenants.
talk about Brookfield Place, I did consulting a number of years ago, in 99 to 2001 for Deloitte & Touche. And I remember, unfortunately, the schlep from Midtown, to the train on 5th, to get to Brookfield Space was, if you took the train, it was okay, and then you get off the train, and then it was a 10-minute walk because over the bridge and everything else. Today, Brookfield Place, because of the way the city has improved, and West Street, it's really done well. Are the people, you see it because you're representing many tenants, are the people who are looking at Brookfield Place the same people looking at the Trade Center, at 32 Old Slip, at 180 Maiden Lane, or do they specifically say, I want Battery Park City?
No, I think the well-informed tenant is coming and looking at all of the options they have available to them. I mean, it's a unique time in the city. As before, 10, even 5 years ago, you'd say law firms are going to stay in Midtown Manhattan. You want to be near where your peers are. Now, through due diligence, people are looking at what's right for them as a firm. Where are our employees? What makes the most sense for us? And one size doesn't fit all, or one location doesn't fit all. It's a really unique time. So there are people going to the west side of Manhattan, they're going to lower Manhattan, and they're leaving areas, whether it's at Time Inc. from 1271 Ave of the Americas coming to Brookfield Place, or you're having a Jones Day coming from the Grand Central area going to a Brookfield Place.
I think those are Time Inc. and I think Jones Day is a game changer because no one would expect a Jones Day. There were always a couple of law firms down here like Strook at 180 Maiden Lane, Fried Frank, and other firms, and Sherman and Sterling and all these other institutions. But we've seen a change. Who's coming today looking at the Trade Center?
It's a little bit of everybody. We've got financial services tenants because it's still the financial capital of America and the financial capital of the world. We've got the Goldman Sachs headquarters. Bank of New York Mellon is right here. It's still very much the financial services neighborhood, but as you say, we're being completely changed by these technology, advertising, and media tenants, advertising agencies, technology firms. Group M, which is a WPP advertising agency, took 500,000 feet in 3 World Trade Center. Omnicom is in 7 World Trade Center. So that has been the greatest growth. It's not your grandfather's downtown anymore. It's a much more dynamic, mixed-use community.
Now, David, I didn't realize, lives in Jersey City. But Jersey City always has these incentives. The Garden State has always been pushing incentives, great incentives to take away. Who are we losing tenants to Jersey City and to the other parts? Pearson a couple of years ago, they went to 345 Hudson, and then they moved partially to Jersey over there.
Bank of New York Mellon, which you just mentioned, they committed to 350,000 feet at Brookfield Place. The other building in consideration was on the Jersey waterfront, and they were going to be able to benefit from substantial incentives through New Jersey Grow. The decision was made by the management to stay in Manhattan, and from what I understand, it didn't represent them, but it was really that was the right decision for them. They wanted for recruiting and retention. That was their thought process.
And that's the key. You talk to any CEO, and they'll tell you, sometimes don't want to admit it necessarily, but their people are their greatest resource.
Absolutely.
And, you ask any CEO who really cares about driving their business and capturing the right employee, and the environment is key to that success.
They don't need to be near their clients. They need to be comfortable for where their staff lives, and it's easy.
So let's look at 2 people over here who bought older buildings, okay, not that old, okay, and basically are renovating them because this building had, the prior management hadn't really put too much money into the building over the years, and some of the properties that are 32 Old Slip and 61 Broadway. How How are you attracting new tenants over here as compared to saying, hey, I want totally brand new and I want the innocuous, the retail over there. There's more retail at the trade center. There are more opportunities, more trains. How are you doing that? Because you guys are over here in 61 Broadway's also.
Well, for us, we looked at this building, and as far as we're concerned, it has glass curtain wall. It has identical features to a brand new glass curtain wall construction. And what we felt is price point, we'll be able to compete better. I mean, World Trade Center certainly looking at the averages in 70s and 80s. We can make a living in 50s and 60s, especially based on the price we paid. I think that's one of the reasons why we headed downtown again. What we do for a living is something called added value. We're not core plus. We need to find avenues in which we can add value. In Midtown, buying at $700-800 a foot for, like you said, B plus, maybe even B type properties, there is no ability to add value. So our business model, which has been for 42 years, is to add value. Is we look down where we can afford somewhere in the range of $500 a foot where it makes sense. So the improvements we're putting in are identical to what brand new product is putting up. We have new meeting conference center. We have a brand new cafeteria, a brand new beautiful plaza. It is comparable in our personal opinion, other than we have a better price point. So I think we can compete with some of the larger tenants.
And that's right. I mean, from a capital improvement standpoint for our assets, 61, we've been looking downtown for several years, and we found 61 irresistible for a bunch of reasons. Really well located, get out of the subway, you're right there. Building's got amazing character. It's got some great tenants, great floor plates, great views. Our value add there as far as any capital improvement were really just minor cosmetics and some new elevator cabs. But we knew that we'd be able to capture the market, which was at the time moving very quickly in the direction of downtown. So just by way of example, the rents that we underwrote at the time are now being exceeded by 15 to 20% on average.
So here's a question, for all of you. You own a substantial number of buildings in Midtown. You've acquired a couple. Mm-hmm. You do work both Midtown and downtown. What's the price differential in general, dollars and cents, as opposed to the 15%? Is it $20 a foot?
Yeah, it's 15 to 20.
On the Class A asking rent, it happens to be $20 a foot.
Yeah.
And 8 years ago, it was close to 40.
Yeah. I mean, so my question is, as I tried to say prior to the taping in our made-up green room, are we in a boom or are we not? Do you remember that discussion?
I do. And my answer is I wouldn't characterize it as a boom, but a new normal. And for all the reasons that we started out with, just the premise of New York City now as that global place to want to be, invest, work. And so I think it's just a fundamental shift from what it used to be. And all these different markets, if you will, they're completely changed from what they were before. Absolutely. The Midtown tenant's going to look in Midtown South and downtown. The downtown tenants, when you find the right opportunity, the right building with the right amount of space, with the right character for your business, whether it's downtown, Midtown South, or Midtown, you're going to execute there.
Let's talk about certain of the other changes taking place. The observation deck is opening up. The streets are opening up around the Trade Center. When does the retail open up at the Trade?
Well, the retail is they're starting to use the below grade for exiting from the path, and they're going to open up the retail by the end of this year, I think is their plan. I mean, what's happened, Michael, is that this is, in addition to the real estate fundamentals, pricing, the quality of the space, some of the things David was talking about, what you've also got here is that this neighborhood is now capturing the vibe of being in New York. And as great as Midtown is, it's in some ways the world city. The qualities that people treasure about New York, that sense of neighborhood, that sense of dynamism at the street level, the new restaurants, the neighborhood places, the fun, the fashion, that is coming to downtown because the workforce lives in neighborhoods that are much more convenient to downtown. Young people are moving to Brooklyn, they're moving to waterfront New Jersey, and they're moving to Lower Manhattan, and less and less.
And they're also moving to Staten Island.
And Staten Island.
If you go where they're building the Wheel, a couple of weeks ago I did a show on the Wheel and the outlet center, the fact that the ferry is right over there. And, in the Stapleton military base before, the Navy base over there, they just built 400 apartments. So there are people over there. And if you want to talk about a low-cost alternative, Staten Island residential rents are substantially lower. So it's good for your workforce. And a lot of the tech business is, younger people, younger generation.
And that's the one of the big competitive advantages that people are only starting to understand is the talent lives in places that are much more convenient to downtown.
Absolutely.
And the companies that are looking at their workforce are saying, I got to think about Lower Manhattan.
That's right.
Now, amenities, how important are certain amenities? Because I think I heard that you were putting in like Bobby Vans they're opening up or something.
That's correct. We're also doing fitness center. I mean, as I described, the conference center and the meeting center and things that you would normally find in a commercial building, a fitness center, which is a rarity, we're putting in a high-end fitness center. But the cafeteria is not being run by the standard.
The fitness center in the World Trade Center is that you can walk up, run up the steps. You know?
That's our one.
Okay.
That's our one competitor there. The different cafeteria style, I think, bringing in what I'd say a catering style restaurateur to run our cafeteria, it changes the dynamics. I mean, they were able to sit with my biggest tenant, Stroke, and pick a menu that you'll never find in half the cafeterias in the city. It brought a different level of quality and a different level of sophistication of food for our tenancy, and I think that absolutely is going to be a great pitch point to bring tenants here.
And that's important. We're doing that in a different way. We're actually working with the Downtown Alliance to amenitize kind of the breezeways and Governor Lane to make it a little more approachable from different food, drink capabilities.
Now, that was a discussion I think we brought up before also, that, certainly the landlords may even have little shuttle buses like the Alliance has downtown where you can go around for amenities and other things to take care of that. Has that been mentioned in many of the pitches that you're doing about the amenities?
Not really. I think it certainly would be nice if you have it over at your building on the west side, there at Lehigh. But as far as Lower Manhattan's concerned, once you really look at it and dive into it, it's really small. I mean, when you talk about going to the Broadway from here on the east side, it's basically 2 west side blocks. And one of the things we do when we're marketing space here and working with David is we have a map, and we literally show the distance it takes to walk. And to your point, it's an 8-minute walk. I work at 52nd and 6th Avenue. I go to Grand Central. That's a 14-minute walk. So when you kind of really try to educate people, and that's the key consideration for those who aren't familiar, it's pretty easy to do, and those that are familiar with downtown, we really don't believe it's an issue.
No. And that's if you take the subway. If you go to Pier 11 with the ferries, it's a 2-minute walk.
Absolutely.
It pulls up right across the street from 32 Woolslip.
Correct.
And there's a lot of people that are taking that, 1 million a year from various...
Now, what Brookfield did, and Dennis didn't like my comment because I still consider it a food court. It's not really a food court. Hudson
dining terrace.
It's a dining terrace, okay? It's a dining terrace with about 40 different vendors over there. What do you have like that similar at the Trade Center?
Well, the Trade Center has Eataly. I mean, for starters, we've got the first Eataly outside of 23rd Street opening in 4 World Trade Center within 6 months. So that's a fundamentally different experience.
How about Nobu coming to 195?
Nobu is coming to 195 Broadway, which is a block, it says, away from the Trade Center. There's a Daniel Boulou operated food establishment. There's going to be all different kinds of markets and small vendors, and a lot of them are coming from hip neighborhoods around the city to operate in the 500,000 square foot retail complex of the World Trade Center, which is complemented by 250,000 square feet at Brookfield, and then even more in the rest of downtown. This has become a shopping district in a way that it never existed.
Right.
Before.
Even when the Trade Center was originally opened, the shopping was at the Trade Center. It was not,
That's right. It was
all underground.
Okay. It was. I mean, this was the insurance district. This was a different world. Okay. And the world of technology and the world has changed. Okay. There's no really insurance district anywhere over there. The world of even the way the business is done. A financial services company, are they still coming down here, or are they being competitors to go to Brookfield's property on the Hudson Yards and
They are
companies?
looking here.
They're looking here, absolutely. It's, just a repeat of what I said earlier. They're looking at what makes the most sense for them and who their employees, and they're focusing on the infrastructure and how they can operate their business. But just taking the amenities, I mean, that's the fundamental difference between now and before when I started. There were 2 or 3 places I remember going to lunch every single day, and it'd be the point where lunch was just something I wasn't excited about. And now, with all the choices one has, it just has really improved the entire area. It's more vibrant, and it's so much easier to attract employees.
So let me say something about financial services. Downtown has always been, the financial capital. But in addition, the other point you made is really important, which is there's a connectivity to some lower cost space in New Jersey that's creating natural synergies for downtown with back office. And less and less is it a zero-sum game of the New Jersey Gold Coast against downtown. And now there's some complementary relationship where financial services companies are saying, I want to be here because I can have a ferry ride or a one-stop path ride to a back office type operation on the New Jersey Gold Coast. Goldman Sachs has done it very successfully, and others are seeing
Royal
that
Bank
opportunity.
of Canada just leased 200,000 feet to do the same thing.
So that's become a plus.
But this is all healthy dynamics, right? Because now we're not reliant upon one industry, and while financial services was 55% or so of the market, and maybe now they're 45%.
I mean, if we
they've
look
been
at
replaced
leasing,
by the TAMI creative types to make it a more diverse market.
But I think the entire leasing market in New York City has changed because at one time it was financial services and legal services. Those were the two major. The internet companies and the tech companies came in over the last 5 years. So the world has changed. And then there's the discussion, not in your properties, but the big discussion of the co-sharing, okay? The WeWorks, the Silicon Alley companies, and all the rest. And it relates to a question. When people are leasing space in Lower Manhattan, are they looking at space more as the open space, or are they leasing the space with doors, in cubicles? What are you seeing in general?
If I had to make a sweeping generalization, you're seeing more open space. Now, naturally, the law firms still like the perimeter offices, but even we're having discussions now with some law firms where they're having more open areas. So Brookfield, for example, they leased all of their space. They have one office only for their chairman. Everything, even the CEO, is in a cubicle. So you're seeing absolutely a trend to that, and it's helping with the densification, which we haven't touched upon.
Again, if I can jump in, the amazing symptom of this phenomenon is the fact that we designed 3 World Trade Center with 5 trading floors at the base that were conceived of to be attractive to financial companies. And they were leased by an advertising agency, which is going to cram, millennials, 20-somethings, and 30-somethings in there at a density that only a new building like 3 World Trade Center could accommodate, because we have the mechanical systems and the elevators.
But
it's a real change.
If you remember when the accounting firms did this, they went into the hoteling. At the beginning of the 21st century, and basically the accountant would come over there. They push their computer, because at that time the laptops were a little heavier. They had the bag. They hook up, and they wouldn't have a desk. So in essence, we've been doing this. It's been changing, and transformation has been there.
But businesses have become smarter as how they run themselves, and
more efficiency of space. The law firms, there's no more law libraries over here. The size space at a partner's office is much smaller than it used to be.
File rooms. I mean, you're talking about everything's been digitalized.
And support ratio is
your internet and
everyone's doing their own work now.
And on portables as well. I mean, it makes everything so much more condensed.
So the paradigm is that every law firm is expanding right now. And when they move, they actually take less space because of this. And there's also just general ways of running business where people want to have connectivity to one another through vast open areas. So, this is going to continue. This is just the way that the world's going to be. And, what it does as a landlord is that while that's beneficial to the business because they're running more efficiently in the floor plate or multiple floors within the building, as far as the price goes, it's almost irrelevant because they've got more people in their space than they had before. So they're not thinking so much price per foot, but price per head.
So I think, in summation, for my first remote ever, and it's really nice because the observation deck and all the new buildings and all the renovations, and to celebrate my 750th show, it's really good to be in downtown, which has truly seen a renaissance and resurgence over the last 14 years. And I'd like to thank Janno, Bill, Rob, and David, and I'll see you next week. Thanks again.